So we are live on YouTube this evening. It's Leo Gilling. Good evening, everyone. This is Leo Gilling on YouTube live here on the hot seat with Paul Ivey. He's gonna be on the hot seat this evening. We're also having Arnaldo Brown coming on this evening. We're going to talk about a whole heap of things, and I hope that all of you stay with us. All of you, you can still join with us and make comments, and more importantly, just go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But listen, we have so many things to talk about. Christmas just passed, New Year's just passed. We're in a 2024, and this is like the second week in a 2024. Last week I misjudged the time, and so we lost that week of discussion. But let me take the time to say welcome to 2024. Welcome to the show this evening, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Paul Ivey.
Greetings, Leo. Happy New Year to you and our listeners and our viewers. I'm happy to continue the dialogue, matters concerning Jamaica. As you have indicated, it is a new year, but the matters keep coming. It is as
Yes.
if we never had a pause. The news is filled with happenings. There's a lot of commentary about an impending election. There are matters to do with the courts. Earlier this week, there was a banner headline in the Gleaner about the court reporters and how
Yes.
their poor remuneration is impairing the dispensing of justice. And so many other things are happening. So I'm here to continue the commentary with a view to airing these issues and ventilating them. The overall objective is one of active citizenship, being engaged in matters of public discourse towards the betterment of our country. That's
Well,
basically my
I like I
motivation.
like that. I like that. But let me ask you this real quickly. How do you see the diaspora taking part in governance in Jamaica? Let's talk a little bit about that. Do you think that we should have a say in our country's governance, or should we just stay apart and throw rocks?
It is an interesting thing, and it has been the subject of debate over the years. One of the things that I know is this. When Jamaicans leave Jamaica, they do not emotionally or psychologically leave Jamaica.
Right.
They are looking for opportunities to better themselves and their families. And a lot of what goes on in Jamaica is supported by the efforts of persons in the diaspora. So there's a tremendous amount of goodwill as well as tangible things that the diasporans, if I may coin that term, provide.
You can.
Provide for Jamaica. As it really, so their input, their contributions to national life is welcomed and is to be encouraged. If we go into other countries, have large diaspora populations, which contribute tremendously to their development. It's basically your population who are not within your borders. And if we consider the notion of globalization based on advanced technologies and all of those kinds of factors that are driving interconnectedness of countries, have basically rendered the world borderless to a great extent. And so I believe the Jamaicans in the diaspora have a critical role to play in ensuring good governance in the country, and to also, notwithstanding not being physically present, to also make their voices heard as it relates to accountability and all of the issues that relate to their country of birth. They have families here, parents, siblings, and so on. if we get into the realm of whether members of the diaspora should vote or be part of the parliament in a formal way, that becomes a little bit dicey in terms of the legalities and the logistics of making that happen. So I want to stay away from that for the moment.
But I don't have to. I don't have to. I don't have to. I can say,
Yeah, but what's your take then?
in order for us to have that extra voting voice,
Yes.
we also have to be a part of the census. We also have to be a part of the budget, in terms of how the Jamaican government spends its money on its constituencies. Yes, we are sending money back, but we are not a part of Jamaica as it is. So Jamaica, when it builds a budget, based on the 2.8 million people that's sitting there. There's
Yes.
no other funding that's coming that we are paying taxes from here to our country to develop the budget higher than what it is on an annual basis, right? And so since there might be a couple of us who own land and we pay land tax, but
Property taxes, yes.
that's nothing. We're not paying consumption tax, and that's a big part of our. We're not paying
PAYE,
PAYE, all of these things. And so
NIS.
exactly, right? So we are excluded from what the government is getting to serve its populace, its 2.8 billion populace. And in any constituency, in any country, the country's budget depends on what the census says, and it appeals to the census all day long. Now, if we were to stretch our diaspora to the 2.9 or the 3 million diaspora that we're talking on the outside, and to stretch the dollar from Jamaica, that don't make any sense. So we are sending money, which is fine. Every other country does that. But in order for me to have a part to play in Jamaica, it had to be both ways. And so I don't see any reason why we should be involved in voting. We already have a vote in America, right? Everybody else in other country have a vote. And Jamaica now say you can't vote. If you have to vote, you just have to spend some money, go down there and enumerate and then vote and go back down there when the election come. I don't have a problem with that. So the thing is, you'll find a lot of people who say, yeah, we need to have a vote. This foolishness. The other thing is, I've heard them talk about having a senator or having a political figure in the diaspora. I have a problem. I have a problem with that. All right. Diaspora has to represent itself. There's no governance, no government that can extend itself into the diaspora. That's almost an illegal act. When a government that extends itself into another country, it's not. I don't even think it's right. But what I disagree with is to have a senator come into here and he's going to go to the Senate or a member of parliament. It can't be the member of parliament anyway. It has to be just a senator. And he has to go back to Jamaica and sit in the Senate and be a senator. I said to myself, okay, how is that going to happen? There are two things that's at play here. First, we're taking the diaspora and make it into JLP and PNP. And you don't want that in the diaspora. You want people to be thinking about their country rather than their party. We have enough partisan politics at Jamaica. We don't need that in a diaspora. And two, who's going to pay me to go and come down there every time they have meetings to come and sit inside that Senate seat? I just don't see it happening. It's foolishness. Huh?
So well, having put that aside, and coming from you, it goes back to the earlier point, though, that the members of the Jamaicans abroad, the diaspora, represent a pool of Jamaicans who can contribute in other ways. and
Absolutely.
have been contributing in other ways.
Absolutely.
There's a
Absolutely.
tremendous pool of expertise, talent, experience that they can share and have been willing to share over the years. So
Yes.
one imagines that that should continue and the diasporans can continue to have a voice
Of
as
course.
they continue to hold their Jamaican citizenship to say that, look, holding that office of citizen gives me the right to comment on matters of public discourse and to
Absolutely.
contribute in that way.
Absolutely.
And to encourage their family members who are here
To speak
to,
up and speak out.
speak up and to agitate for the
Yes.
governance of Jamaica.
Absolutely.
I've been thinking in recent times, that we have been discussing a number of different topics. They are discrete topics. But in my mind, I've been trying to say to myself, where does all of this lead to?
Good
And
question.
I've formed the view that it's about good governance. Because if we had good governance,
We wouldn't be having this conversation.
education system would be in good order,
Yes.
crime would be under control,
Yes.
public order would be taken care of,
Yes.
infrastructural issues would be taken care of, the basic needs of the citizens and so forth. And all of those various things. In fact, the Constitution speaks to the establishment of a government for the peace and good order of the country. That's what the Constitution speaks about, and so on and so forth. So this matter of good governance. And I think that's what we should be agitating for. And in that vein, the other issue that immediately arises is that of active citizenship.
Mhm.
How do we as citizens be actively engaged in the affairs of our country, holding our elected representatives accountable
Accountable.
and demanding
Transparency.
that which is good for the country? Gordon Robinson wrote a piece in the papers, I think it was Sunday, in the Gleaner, in the In Focus section, where he was alluding to the constitutional affairs. And he was saying that what is being proposed is basically what is being discussed by the committee itself and not being informed by what the people desire. So, for example, the momentum has shifted to say that, look, we do not want a ceremonial president. And Gardner Robinson went on to define, taking it from the dictionary, what constitutes a republic. A republic is a country that has an elected president and does not have a king or queen.
Well, as the head of state, right?
As the head of state, elected president,
Elected.
not a
So,
ceremonial
so
president.
why would we need a president? I mean, if we have a two-party system and we have the prime minister as the leader of the country. Tell me, what does if we're getting rid of the queen, of the king right now, we don't also need the governor general. Why do we need to replace him? And we have Attorney Arnaldo Brown, and he's a good man to answer this question. So he's on board. Help us to understand, why do you need that second tier of as a president if we're going to republic?
All right. Good evening to
Good
you.
evening.
Greeting, Sir
Yes.
Brown.
I think it's the first time for the year, right? So happy New
Yes.
Year.
Happy New Year to you too, my friend.
Best 2024.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. And the same to you.
I appreciate it. All right. So let me give a little bit of context, right?
Yes.
The first observation I'd like to make is that constitutional reform is really not new. I think since 1962, we have been in a state of flux where constitutional reform is concerned, and we have had peaks and troughs, right? And the last time I was on, we spoke a little bit about the Bill of Rights, which was passed in 2011. And
Yes.
I think that was a high point in terms of the constitutional reform agenda. Now, another period of ferment where constitutional reform is concerned in Jamaica is between 1995 and 1997. And in fact, many people don't realize that in 1997 or thereabout, when there was the birth or the launch of the National Democratic Movement, um, you know, that period, in a sense, contributed to it, because that was a period of um, a lot of engagement around the need for constitutional reform and so on. So a lot of work had actually been done. And one of the sticking point, which remain a sticking point, is this issue here relating to whether Jamaica should have a ceremonial president or we should have an executive president.
Yes.
And what it is really the question of the organization of the democratic process. So we are a former colony of the United Kingdom, and as such, we have adopted the Westminster model. And the Westminster model is one that has a parliament, it has a prime minister, but then their arrangement is monarchical, right? And in fact, when you talk about the Glorious Revolution, that is when Parliament, in a sense, took unto itself more powers and relegated the monarchy in the UK to a ceremonial role. So that was a compromise that was made in their system, where their monarch, which was once all powerful, became a ceremonial head of state. And therefore, there's a dichotomy between head of state and head of government. So in the context of the parliamentary model, the head of state, in the case of the United Kingdom, is the monarch, and the head of government is the prime minister. And there is a separations of power between both of them, so that the monarch knows that they don't interfere with the parliament, right? And in the context of the United Kingdom, there is parliamentary supremacy because there's no codified constitution in the United Kingdom. So when that model was exported to the Anglophone Caribbean, we inherited a head of state, which was the monarch represented by the governor general. And we had a head of government who is the prime minister. Now, it is felt, and some would say research has demonstrated, that the parliamentary system of democracy has been more stable and successful outside of its place of origin than the presidential model. So you have had more successful parliamentary democracies than you have had presidential democracies. Now, that might have shifted over time, in the sense that as countries become more mature politically, then they are better able to operate the systems that they have adopted. So the view really is that rather than adopt wholesale an executive presidential model, it would be best to maintain the model that we have operated and inherited, that has provided us with relative political stability, where there's a separation between the head of state and the head of government. Now, as I've said, if we come back now to 95, 97, when there was a lot of buzz around constitutional reform, and there was what you would call consensus on a number of points. There were some sticking points. One of the sticking points is, should we have an executive president or should we have a ceremonial president? Now, if we go the route of an executive president, it means that the reform that we are talking about is going to be more radical, for want of a better word, than what we now operate. What do I mean? So where is the model of executive presidency? The model of executive presidency in the main is to be found in the United States, if we speak more contemporarily. And if we're going to speak historically, it will be France, right? But let's stick to the contemporary for the moment.
Yes.
So if we were to adopt the American model, it means that the head of state and the head of government would be vested in the president.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the implication of that arrangement for Jamaica? It means that there would be a separation between the parliament and the executive branch of government, a total separation.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Because I don't see anything
No,
wrong with it. Right. Okay.
No, I'm not
Okay. All right.
I'm not advancing whether one is right or wrong.
Oh, okay then. All right.
I'm just laying out
yes
the arrangement so that people can understand what are the issues that flow from that.
Okay,
right?
Good.
So if we go the route of an executive president, it means that we would have total separations of power. We presently now have quasi-separations of power or fusion of power. What do we mean by that? In the present arrangement, the executive branch and the legislature are fused. They sit in the same house. In the US case, the president does not sit in any of the chambers. He does not sit in the Senate. He does not sit in the Congress.
Right.
And in fact, is invited to the Congress to make the State of the Nation address once every year, right? Which would be the equivalent of our throne speech here in our current present dispensation, right?
Yes.
Where the monarch comes to the parliament and makes a presentation. The speech is written, of course, by the government, not by the monarch. So the agenda that is being presented is that of the government of Jamaica, even though the person who is mouthing it is the representative of the monarch in the United Kingdom. So let's be clear.
Great points. Let me ask one question. In the scenario where we have a prime minister and a president head of state, what does head of state mean to the Jamaican populace?
Right. So again, and this is where
did we lose you?
Conversation revolves.
Okay, so you're saying that this is where the conversation revolves. You're kind of breaking up, and until we can hear you clearly. There you go. Okay, all right, go ahead.
So I was saying to you that the Governor General assents to legislation. He does make some appointments. So, for instance, it is the Governor General who appoints the Prime Minister, right? The Governor General appoints and I'm being as simplistic as possible. Of course, there are some nuance, right?
Yes,
Governor General appoints the Chief Justice. Governor General appoints the President of the Court of Appeal, right? And appoints judges of the Supreme Court. I'm not sure. I would have to check if it goes down to the level of the parish court, but certainly at the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal level, the Governor General does that, right? And there are other ceremonial functions that the Governor General carries out, but he is not at large. And some people, if you read the Constitution, it would suggest that he can act independently of the government, but when you look at the practice, that is not so. Because again, if you look back to where we're getting it from, the monarch in the UK does not interfere with the government of the United Kingdom. And in fact, before Charles ascended to the throne, there were some concerns as to whether he would be interfering. But it seems somebody might have had a talk with him.
I know that I know that Paul wants to interject for a while now. So go ahead, Paul. Hold your thought there for a minute, Arnaldo.
Yes, Mr. Brown has made quite a comprehensive overview.
It's really a good one. Really a good one, right?
On some of the points that are of concern to the populace. So, for example, the question is this. What is a republic? I think we need to define that. So if we say we are shifting away from the monarchy and we're going towards a republican form of government, then we have to start from the definition of what is a republic. And
are you going to ask him? Are you going to ask him, or are you going to tell us?
Well, I'm going. Perhaps I should do both.
All right, go ahead.
Get his opinion on it. From what I have seen in terms of the textbook definition, if you will, a republic is a form of government that has an elected president by the people, and there is no king or queen. And if we don't have a king or a queen as part of our arrangements, then clearly we wouldn't need a representative of a king or queen in the personage of a ceremonial head of state representing the king and queen. It is also the case that the point was made that, well, if we move so far away from what has been described as a parliamentary system that has given us a degree of stability from its inception, what that seems to be suggesting that we ought not to make far-reaching changes. To go the whole distance of a republic will require us to make far-reaching changes in terms of our entire governance arrangements, in terms of having a proper, which we don't have now. Mr. Brown described it as a quasi-separation of powers. We want a complete separation of powers, because the point has been made that we really don't have separation of powers. And I think it was in the NDM days, Mr. Brown, that separation of powers became a buzz phrase, and it was in the public domain.
In the 70s,
at that time, yeah. Separation of powers. We want separation of powers because we have to ask ourselves the question, has this form of governance arrangement that we have had, has it served us well? So you have the executive inside of the parliament, essentially being accountable to itself. That's what is happening, you know. When ministers who are part of the executive, the cabinet, go into parliament, they are reporting to the parliament who is supposed to be holding them accountable. So there's that. The other point is this. The point was made about consensus. In the course of the different periods of constitutional reform discussions, at a certain point in time, consensus was arrived on certain points, including this ceremonial presidency. The question is, consensus by whom? And I'll answer it. Consensus by the two political parties, not consensus derived from the people. And what we are hearing now, coming back from the people, is a desire to dispense with a ceremonial head of state. The people are saying we want an executive president. We don't want an expensive figurehead anymore.
All right, good point. So let me, Arnaldo, what you just said, what I gather from one of the points that he made a while ago was that the prime minister should be representative of the people, which means that when we go to the polls, we will be voting for our prime minister. And our prime minister does not automatically get the balance, the better balance of the power inside of parliament. right? It could be that he's the prime minister, and most of the MPs are, more than 51% of the MPs are for JLP, and he's PNP, or vice versa, he's JLP, and more than 51% of the parliament is PNP. So how could that work? Could that system work with us as to help us to make decisions, or would there be a gridlock, or a kind of roadblock there if the parties aren't managing the power?
All right. So there's really a lot to unpack, right?
Yes, yes.
And let's put it this way.
Thank you.
What we're talking about is whether we should have evolutionary changes or revolutionary changes, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Evolutionary change or radical change.
Mhm.
There's a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, again, there's no dispute that based on the Westminster export model, because this is an export model. This doesn't operate in the same way as it does in the United Kingdom. That's the first thing to comment, right? The first distinction is that we have a codified constitution as opposed to an unwritten constitution. So we have constitutional supremacy, whereas in the United Kingdom, there is parliamentary supremacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are a constitutional monarchy. Now, to answer Dr. Ivey directly, it will be a republic, whether it is ceremonial or it is executive, because the idea of a republic is the absence of a monarch. That's the first thing.
No, but is it not the elected
issue,
president?
no.
Isn't it both sides?
The first thing, the first thing is the absence of a monarch. If you do not have a monarch, you have a republic. Now, I mentioned earlier the French, because republicanism began with the French. They revolted against their monarch. They got rid of their monarch. Did they elect their president? Did they elect their emperor? No, he was not elected at that particular point in time. But they broke with the tradition that existed then, which was to have monarchical hereditary rule. Yeah. So somebody who was not from the bloodline of the royal family usurped and took over and became the head of the state, right? So if we're gonna be purist, then elections were not necessarily the deciding factor in who became the monarch. If we're gonna go to history, so let's put that into context.
Yeah, but that was a start, right? But how long from there did they have an elected
president? I'm just making the point.
Okay, then. All right. Okay.
We don't need to blame.
I got you.
I'm just making the point.
I got you, sir.
So the point. So what I'm responding.
We lost him again. But I understand where he's going with that, saying that the republic doesn't have
that person was not elected.
Okay.
That person was appointed, just in the same way that well, I don't even know the mechanism, so let me not go there. But the point is they were not elected. Right. Now, does that mean that we cannot have an elected president? No, it does not mean that. Is an elected president desirable? Certainly, if the people are interested in an executive president, I see nothing wrong with that, right? But what I would say is that I personally would not have an issue either with the removal of the monarch, a replacement with a president that for the time being might be ceremonial, and then you can move from there to an elected president. And I'll tell you why, right? So remember now that we're talking about the arrangement of the government, the structure of the government.
Yes.
We're going to have a president that is elected directly by the people.
Yes.
That means that that president is going to be able to call his cabinet independent of the parliament.
Yes.
It's a totally different
Okay, I have a
arrangement.
problem. I have a problem with that. That's too much. That's too much structure.
It's a totally different arrangement, and it therefore means that you're gonna need some. Well, in my view, I mean, you may not. You may need some time to transition, to put the structures and the systems in place to allow that arrangement to take root and to be effective. Now, what it therefore means is, if you look at the American system, they do not have a prime minister. They have a
President.
speaker of the house. They have a president. They have a speaker of the house, right? And is a president they have in the Senate? What they have in the Senate? The house leader, right?
Yes,
The leader of the
leader.
Senate,
Leader.
majority leader, and the minority leader. So, in other words, what we're talking about is a wholesale transition out of what we currently have as an arrangement to a new type of arrangement.
Yes.
No,
So you're saying that we should not just take out one system and put in a brand new system.
Well, we should. What I'm saying is that we should not wholesale adopt a system. We have the opportunity, in my view, to fashion a system that is Jamaican. Now, it may very well be that we're going to take elements of the US and elements of the British and Jamaicanize it, right? Because let's not fool ourselves. The US system has its own challenges.
Any
right?
system will. Any system will.
So the first thing is that there's gridlock. You spoke to that,
Yes.
Leo. You intimated it. There's
Yes.
gridlock, right? And gridlock occurs when there's no consensus. We have seen political polarization in the United States unprecedented. So what I'm cautioning against is, let us not romanticize any of the systems. Let's look at them and let's fashion a system that will advance the democratic ethos of Jamaica. Now let me be clear. I have absolutely no issue with an executive president.
Okay.
I support the move towards full separations of power. I have no issue with that. But let us also understand that in the US system, the executive power rests in the president. The head of state rests in the president. It is the president that is the head of the armed forces, right? And granted, he has to have the consent of Congress to declare war. But we have seen where if the president and the Congress are at odds, if the president and the Senate are at odds, the government shuts down.
Yes. But
Now, if you map that into the existing political culture of Jamaica, we probably would have constant and permanent gridlock.
And it would. That's
here's
exactly
the
why I
problem.
brought that up. Go ahead.
Here's the issue. What Mr. Brown has indicated in terms of the pros and cons and so forth, these are not matters that are currently under active discussion.
I was going to say that too.
What we have is a situation where this committee seems to have some a priori positions which it wants to impose. And whereas the people are saying something else or advocating for a different kind of scenario, we do not have the dialogue and the conversations and the consultations as wide enough, even as Mr. Brown has laid them out here, to say these are the considerations, these are the pros and cons, this is the path that we have. Okay, you have a trajectory that you are set out, but you're saying, okay, we are going to take it in phases, rather than, as you know, they say that you don't make jerky movements with SUVs, they will roll over. So let us not make too much of a jerky movement here, but let us take this in graduated steps. But we don't have that. We don't have sufficiently robust and good faith consultations, if you will.
but
What
what
we're
is
hearing is that there has been consensus. And what we hear, oh, we're going to take a bill to the parliament and so forth. And they are at odds with the public sentiments.
so let me ask this question here. What is different from what we would expect from a republic in this presentation by the existing government and its constitutional reform? What is different there from what we expect to be a republic? A republic?
In my view, I
Yeah.
do not see a suite of changes that will make it sufficiently different, except that you're going to say we don't have King Charles anymore, we have a local king, a local president. That's basically it, which seems to be the full gamut of what is being regarded. So we are not going into some aspects of the governance arrangements that have not served us well. We are not hearing about any arrangements, for example, to curb some of the awesome powers that a prime minister has. We're not hearing any talk along that lines. We're not hearing any talk having to do with term limits, fixed election dates, as part of saying, look, we are putting ourselves in charge of ourselves. These are the suite of changes that we are contemplating towards better governance. Because having looked at what we have had, these are the different areas that has not served us well. So, for example, Mr. Brown has raised the point about the NDM. And it's a good point, because in the run-up to the NDM, a lot of discussions pertaining to the Constitution did in fact take place. So, for example, the point was made, when you're having persons being appointed or nominated to some key positions, do they appear in Parliament as you would have, for example, in the US, the Senate confirmation, quote unquote? But
No.
that's not, you're not it's not like you're saying that, well, to be confirmed by the Senate or whatever.
You're right.
But do they appear in front of the Parliament to be vetted, as it were, and those kinds of things? So my thing is this: a suite of changes that are contemplated, put on the table for public discussions, and then you come to see if you can cohere around these points with some element of consensus that takes account of the sentiments of the people. They have a thing that they call guided democracy. Sometimes the people may have a particular point of view, but it is for the leaders. And this, I agree with Mr. Brown on the question of leadership. I'm not seeing the leadership being demonstrated where you're going to explain to the people the pros and cons of a particular contemplated course of action, and then you're able to make a decision and get the buy-in. What we are seeing is the traditional, almost the same top-down type of things. And I think what we want are new governance arrangements that are more effective than what we have had in the past.
Arnaldo, what as you same question, what is in this package that's being presented that is different from what we expect to be a republic? Or is there anything in there that says, it's not republic? And I hear Paul. Paul is very good in I know of one thing: the CCJ, the Privy Council, still a part of the new system. But is there anything else that stands out to you that's being presented, aside from what Paul said, that would make us not a republic?
All right. So, are you hearing me?
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you. Yes.
Right. So I would agree with the observation that has been made generally in terms of how the approach has been taken. And the approach that has been taken is really, in my view, an attempt to fulfill certain promises that were made from as far back as 2016 in terms of constitutional reform, right? And the easiest thing to do symbolically would be to remove the monarch as the head of state and to replace that person with a president. That's the easiest thing to be done.
Right.
But if you are really talking about fundamental change, then along with the removal of the monarch must be the removal of the Privy Council.
Yeah.
And the government has signaled that they want to ring fence the Privy Council.
What the word ring fence? What ring fence mean? Whenever you know one. Ring fence.
Yeah, well, by ring fence, keep it in place.
Okay.
Right? Now,
Yes.
now I don't understand how is it that you say you're getting rid of the monarch, but you want to appeal to their court. Because the Privy Council is the monarch's court. So that certainly makes no sense, right? And then I would also agree that the talk about consultation is farcical. And what you really have is the very same approach that was used in the lead up to the 1962 Constitution, which is really a devolution of power from the UK to the colonies, right? But maintaining that umbilical cord, because we have not really cut the umbilical cord. Right. So that the people are really not at the center of the discussion, and we have not drilled down to look at the different pros and cons of a US presidential model versus a UK parliamentary model or a hybrid model. Right? We have not considered the implication, because I don't believe that there was consensus around a ceremonial president. I think it was really a sticking point. I think one side wanted to have an executive president, and the other side wanted a ceremonial one. And one of the issues was the issue of cost. Because if people are going to complain about the 200% increase in parliamentarian salary, if you get an executive president, then there is going to be an increase in the cost of government. And this is not to say that we shouldn't get an executive president, but understand what is going to happen. The president will appoint his cabinet. Those cabinet ministers will not be part of the parliament. So you would have 63 parliamentarians. And then if it is that you are going to now have the president being able to make his cabinet, if we are to take the number that the Constitution prescribes, a minimum of 11, you would now have 11 cabinet ministers, right? Then the other question is, in the context of a presidential system or a Republican system, the Senate is not appointed. The Senate is also elected. Senators are elected.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So the question therefore is that in our context, we have an appointed Senate.
Yes.
30 on the government side and 8 on the opposition side. Are we now going to subject senators to direct election by the electorate?
Okay, I like
the point has also been made. It is part
that's
of
another
the
question.
Made in the discussions.
Yeah.
Are we going to increase the size of the Senate? Because again, the argument was to move the size up from 21 to 35, right? That was part of the conversation that was being had. But you would keep the existing structure, and then the additional senators would be elected, right? So the reality is that we are scratching the surface, and it is sort of in a clandestine way, because these public consultations are, as I said, more show than substance. Because when the committee was set up for deliberation, they were not open to the public. They were proposed to be in camera, because the approach was that since so much work has gone into constitutional reform before, since so much has been agreed, why open it up to the public to open up a can of worms and get into the nitty-gritty, and we may never reach our goal? So to put it bluntly, I believe that this process has one singular objective, and that is to remove the constitutional monarchy and replace it with a ceremonial head of state that we call a president.
All right.
That is the end game of this
Thank you.
process.
Thank you for that. Yeah, you're going to say something, Paul? Go
Yes,
ahead.
but here's the point now about the.
Thank you, Arnaldo.
You have the House of Representatives, members of Parliament, if you will, that would be elected. We say we're going to go for elected senators. We go for a directly elected president who will name his cabinet. And we're saying, okay, all of that is increasing the size of government or the cost of government. But in everything, the question of cost benefit analysis arises. What if this new arrangement gives us better governance? It will be worth it.
I am concerned though.
Yes.
So we have an elected Senate, which is good, and we have an elected Parliament, right?
Yes.
And it means that
no, our Senate is not elected. Our Senate is appointed.
No. In the new system, okay. Let's say we do have an elected, hypothetically, and we have a bill that is going to go through the Parliament, and you know how things are. What will happen when it gets to the Senate? If it's a good bill, it can get thrown away in the Senate, right? Am I saying that right? If a bill is started in order for a bill to become law in Jamaica, it has to go through both the Senate and the House of Representatives, right?
Yes.
So my question is, if there are two opposing powers, one in the Senate and one in the Parliament, bills can get thrown by the wayside, right?
Yes, that's a possibility. But here's the thing. And this is where now the power of the people is going to come to play. Okay. If the people agree or think that that's a good bill, and the parliamentarians, the senators or the members of parliament, do not proceed with passing that bill. Remember now, elections are sanctioning devices. That is where, for example, in the US, you see senators get held hostage in their offices by their constituents, in the sense of making demand on their elected representatives. The people needs to appreciate their strength and the power that they have, that they put the elected representatives there to essentially do their bidding.
Okay.
So if you don't do my bidding, there's a price to pay. And that is where the people now become the center of this whole thing.
I'm going to play devil's advocate because I see something here, right? All right. And bear with me. I need your points of view. The Integrity Commission report that came out a few months ago that says 6 persons are of illegal yes, right. And it went to 2 different bodies. It went to the Senate and it went to the also the Parliament, right? Am I right there?
We went to the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House.
And the Speaker of the House, right? Yes. And so therefore, one body decided, one person decided that okay, it's gonna go here. Why the other body couldn't override that? And is what we're proposing, will that prevent something like this from happening, where one person make a decision to kind of sidestep the law or I think you guys know what I'm asking. I'm not I'm not very good at the policies in Jamaica, but I'm sure you know what I'm going with this. Go ahead, Paul. Tell me.
I'm not sure I understand clearly what you're saying.
All right.
You're saying that if
if I
go ahead. Yes, please.
I think you have gotten it. Okay.
Right. So
you have to start again. You're breaking up.
Which are you indicating, Leo, that it's a possibility that one chamber might
Yes.
take one particular course of action and the other
Another
chamber
chamber take another
course of
course.
action?
Right. And why is it that one chamber didn't do anything, but the other chamber did something, and it kind of sidestepped the expectation of what everybody wanted. And would a new here he comes. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, there are two separate chambers, so let's be clear,
Right.
right?
Yes.
So we have a bicameral legislature, even though in the case of Jamaica, both are governed by the standing order, which is the rules of parliament, and the rules are essentially similar. I am not sure that the rules are different in the Senate from the rules in the lower house. As far as I'm concerned, it's the same set of standing orders, right?
Mhm.
Now, here's the thing. There is a difference between what is written in terms of the rule and what is practice.
Okay. Oh, I see. Yes, I understand that. But yes.
So you may have a practice, but it is not the written rule.
Right.
So it is a convention.
But doesn't the practice supersede the rules, since it has been happening over and over and over?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
And that's an issue. That's an issue that is to be examined, because here's the thing. And I'll give you an example. Let me use this example. So you have the common law, which is law that emerges out of decided cases. And
Right.
you have legislation.
Right.
Now, which is cases which is law that is written down, right? Made by, well, not written down, but made by Parliament.
Right.
There's a conflict between the common law and the legislation. The legislation is going to take precedent.
Oh, it will. Oh my God, that something.
So
If it goes to court, though. Okay.
So the question is whether the convention takes precedence over what the actual rule is.
My point.
And I personally would believe that the actual rule would carry more weight.
Oh,
That's
it would.
me personally. Could be wrong, right?
So what about if it goes to court?
No, but I'm telling you, if it goes to court and there's a conflict between the common law
It would
and
take
statute, statute takes precedence.
Okay.
Right?
Got you. Okay.
So therefore, the question is, does the practice take precedence over the actual rule itself?
I see.
And let's be clear. Sometimes a practice emerges because people actually don't know the rule.
Right.
So if somebody comes down and decide that they are going to be a stickler for what is written down, there's a problem. Because if the rule says X, but the practice says Y, question is, which one takes precedent?
Okay, so now, based on the fact now that it's the same code that we're working with in both houses, one house makes a decision, so the second house has to stay quiet and go along with that. That's what you're saying?
No, because remember, the Senate is a review chamber. They don't have to follow what the lower house does, right? So the Senate doesn't have to follow. But the point I'm making, though, is that I'm unaware that the standing orders in the upper house are different from the standing orders in the lower house.
Okay.
Now, it may very well be that the speaker decide that she is going to be a stickler for the rules because it is convenient for her.
Right.
Right? And the president may decide, well, I'm going to keep with the practice.
Okay, and I would argue.
So why didn't that happen?
No, I'm going to argue.
Okay, answer that. Yes.
Respond. I'm going to argue that in the instant case, the action taken in one house achieves the same outcome that the presiding officer of the other house have in regard to their political affiliation. The earlier action is convenient.
All right. So so here goes my question there now. So if there were opposing powers in each house, then one could go with the practice and release the information.
Oh, yes.
Okay, got
Oh,
you.
yes, without a doubt.
Okay,
Without
because
a doubt. And that is why sometimes when you hear them say you have divided government, it is probably not necessarily in all instances a bad thing.
Okay. Okay.
And also it goes further. Another dimension to this divided government argument is that sometimes it forces consensus.
Yes.
Where you really have to agree because neither has a majority or you don't control both houses. And that is why in the US you see, for example, you know, what is the margin in the Senate? Is it 50-50? Is it 49, 51, etc., and so forth? And there is this big desire to control the majority in a particular house because it can allow you to advance your agenda.
All right, Arnaldo, that was great explanation there. I really I'm happy to have gotten that. So was there any plan for the release of the information? Like, you know, yeah, we're gonna go by the rule, but is there a rule that says it has to be reviewed in 2 months and released, or in 6 months or a year? How does that go? Because it can't just go there and sit, right?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, death by committee, right? So if you send it to a committee, how long is that committee going to deliberate? And what is that committee going to say or to ultimately decide? Now, if it is tabled immediately, including access by the public, and that is one of the elements of the tabling. If you send it to the committee, you immediately restrict the access of the public until the committee has deliberated and probably arrived at a decision and probably then makes a report, right?
Okay, so what I don't understand, if there was the integrity commission says that the law was broke, that it was something illegally done, am I right?
Well, listen, we don't know because they put something in the public domain that we are not aware of because we don't have the facts, right? It spoke about illicit enrichment, spoke about number of persons. It hasn't identified who those persons are.
Well, the word illicit means illegal, doesn't it?
No, well, illicit means that they have not come to the resources in a manner that they can
explain,
describe it, or its legitimacy, or explain its source.
Right, but there's also.
Let's be clear, because they.
I have to be very, yes.
Hold a second.
Yeah, man.
Let me just get to this point here, right?
All right.
Because that is an important question that you raise.
Yes.
So illicit enrichment is unexplained wealth, unexplained resources. Now let us understand something, right? There is a presumption of innocence, right? And people are innocent until proven guilty. Now, sometimes the presumption is reversed, meaning there's a presumption of wrongdoing, and then you have to now prove that there was none. Right. So the point I'm making is that the fact that the Integrity Commission has announced that it is investigating instances of illicit enrichment does not mean that they have proven those instances. So it could be that when it is probed and when the investigations are completed, the persons are able to satisfactorily explain how they come about their wealth.
I must be reading wrong.
No,
because
yeah? No, go ahead. Let me hear.
Because I thought that I read that that this should be moved to these cases should be moved to to be prosecuted. Did I see that wrong?
But listen,
Yeah.
but even if there's a prosecution, you know,
Right.
a prosecution is not conclusive of guilt until there is a conviction.
Right. I understand.
This is a point. This is a point I'm making. But here's what I'm going to say, right?
Yes.
I'm thinking about it. And I'm gonna say it, which is this. There has been a contention with the Integrity Commission Act. Because what the Integrity Commission Act does is that once there is a live investigation, the Integrity Commission cannot speak about it, can't give details about it.
So-called gag clause.
So refer to it as a gag clause.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm one of those persons who believe in people's right to their reputation until
Absolutely.
there is due process and there is conviction.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to jump on a soapbox and say this gag order should be removed because it might be popular among people.
Right.
Because there's the thing, if somebody calls you a thief in Jamaica,
You are a
the
thief.
movement that goes out here,
Yes.
Jamaicans are going to say, well, if him never thief it, or if it never goes so
So it goes
so.
near goes so right.
I think,
Agree.
I think it is a self-serving clause put in there by the political director.
Yes, and I expect that people will disagree, and no problem. But here's the thing. I'm a practitioner of the law, right? And there is a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. There's also the principle that you are entitled to your good name. And I'm explaining that there are two processes. There's a presumption of innocence, and there's also the presumption of guilt. The presumption of guilt is a reverse presumption. So in the case, and I'm using this as an example now.
Yeah, man.
In the case of narcotics, if you are caught at the airport with narcotics, you are presumed to be guilty.
Yeah.
So it means, therefore, that you have to go prove your innocence, which is a greater thing to prove than the presumption of innocence, right?
Okay, but Arnaldo, the Integrity Commission rule is to identify that a person is clean or has questions. And if they have
no, I don't think that's their role.
how else can I put it?
Well, here's the thing, and this is what I'm saying, that if I look at what is happening with this particular situation here, right? I believe that the target of this information being in the public domain is this quote-unquote gag order. Because remember, in a previous dispensation, when we did not have the Integrity Commission in its current form, right? And we had the contracts
Contractor General.
Contractor General, right? When we had the Contractor General, the practice of the then Contractor General was to load up every investigation he was doing, right? Release report to the Parliament and to the public and put it in the public domain. And invariably, whether right or wrong, every single matter that went from the Contractor General to the Director of Public Prosecution, no convictions came out of them.
Oh my God! And so
but people's reputation, hold on, but people's reputation in the public space would have been damaged.
Absolutely, I agree.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, and here's where I'm taking a different view. Just to clear up the point, Leo, the Integrity Commission in its report mentioned that 6 parliamentarians and 28 public officials, I think, were being investigated. So it's
Okay.
not a matter of going towards prosecution. So they were being investigated. Now, the question is this, as to why can't these persons be named in terms of protecting their reputations? The point is, especially in relation to the parliamentarians, remember now, there is the Integrity Commission Oversight Committee that some of these parliamentarians may possibly be on that committee that's going to be reviewing the work of the Integrity Commission that may very well be investigating some of them. So when you hear they are clamoring for changes to the law, is it the case that there's a possibility that someone who has an axe to grind is wanting to make changes to the Integrity Commission's law because they themselves may well be under
Yeah,
investigation?
that's really hard.
Commission.
That's really,
So
yeah.
the point also, an additional point is this: to be named to be under investigation is not an
A bad thing
presumption of
of
guilt.
guilt. Yes, I agree.
You're saying
Uh,
that the person is under investigation, and the regular
the
Joe Blow, the
with the
regular
greatest
Joe Blow.
with the greatest of respect,
So
I
let me finish
disagree
the point.
fully.
The regular Joe Blow, when they're under investigation, is named. But why the parliamentarians want to reserve to themselves the special treatment? It is self-serving.
And here's my response to that.
Mhm.
The regular Joe Bloke ought not to be named either. So the argument that because the regular Joe Bloke is named, the politician should be named, that is incorrect. Some of the things that we do in this country is palpably wrong, right? The presumption of innocence should apply to the man on the street as it applies to anybody. And that's the other argument. Because when you call his name, and when you put out there that he's a person of interest, you sully his reputation, you prejudice him. Can he get justice? So I think we are missing the point entirely. And for those persons who will argue, because some of the civil rights and the not civil rights, some of the NGOs will argue, human rights will argue. It's not even so much human rights. NIA. I don't want to feel that. But they will come and they will make an argument that because you're in political office, you should be singled out to be treated separately from the rest of the population, in the sense that the minute your name is called in anything funny, you should step aside, right? And let me say this: resignation is not accountability.
I agree.
Right?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Except that
I agree with that. I agree with that. It's like Claudine. It's like Claudine Gay.
But people who believe that resigning is the ultimate of accountability, they are incorrect. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't resign,
right,
but I'm just simply saying that if there's an allegation against your name and there is a presumption of innocence in your favor,
stay there and fight.
Why would I be stepping down until you
exactly? Exactly.
Absolutely not.
Yes, I agree with that 100%.
But in the vaunted UK that we say that we have taken our system from, the minute there is any such thing, there is in fact a resignation that occurs. That has been the practice there. And secondly, we do hold our elected representatives to a higher standard. It's like they should be beyond reproach, beyond question, and so forth. So there is that, because public office isn't an entitlement. And if there are questions that have arisen and persons say, okay, because that's what, you know, what I notice is that public sector workers, for example, they are easily then dispensed with if there's any, you know, allegation of impropriety or so forth. In the case of politicians, what you hear, oh, it is the electorate who must remove them or stuff like that, you know. Yes. We had this situation where we are told that, look, Can't do
Both of you
anything
make really good
because if the
arguments.
people want them, then so be it, or what have you.
Yeah.
And that is why, for example, an impeachment bill and recall are things that we should put into our governance arrangements.
All right, Arnaldo, go ahead.
You know, again, I'm going to say this, right? Some things are sexy. Some things are very appealing. And we say them, we repeat them, but we have not really examined the veracity of them. It is not that easy to remove a public sector worker. It's not.
No.
And quite frankly,
yeah,
we have seen instances where the powers that be have attempted to move people and they have gone to the courts.
Yes, and they win.
They have resisted being removed. And in many instances, the court has said you need to reinstate these people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So then that is not an exact comparison.
I don't think he's asking. I don't think he's asking for removal, though. He's asking for impeachment.
No, I'm just saying. But even if government come in, and we have seen it with this government, they have come in, they have moved people around, they have pushed people out of positions. People have got their lawyers, right? And the court have pushed back on the government, and that is why you have an independent judiciary, right? The judiciary protects everybody, including from tyrannical government. So I'm simply saying that we need to be balanced.
Well,
and it is not to say that public officials ought not to be accountable, but there must also be due process. And I can give an example. I beg your pardon, right? People know what my stripe is, but I'm not being political. In the period that Portia Simpson was Prime Minister of Jamaica, there was a big furor about Richard Azan, who had done some work in a market, right? And pressure was brought to bear. He resigned. The matter went to court, and he was exonerated, and he was reinstated, right? So the point I'm making is that people can be political. They can exploit systems like recall. They can exploit systems like impeachment. We have seen it in the United States.
But there's something here, though, Arnaldo.
Donald Trump was impeached twice.
Yes.
Never removed office. Now they're attempting to impeach Joe Biden.
Right.
Because
impeachment doesn't get you out of office. It just puts a ding on your record.
So here's the point I'm saying, and what I'm saying, and this is not an argument against impeachment. It's not an argument against recall. All I'm simply saying is let us not romanticize these features, because in the places that they have been created, they have not delivered better governance, quite frankly.
All right. Okay. So, but I am uncomfortable, though, or maybe I'm not, but I want to make the point that that with the investigations that are going on with the persons who they say are illicit six or whatever they call them, right? The investigation that's going on, you are actually saying that that report should not have come out based on your argument. The report of 6 people being investigated should not have made it to frontline because they are presumed innocent. But if it doesn't come out, then there is a high probability that it can be shoved under the if they are in fact and legitimately done something illegal, then they by not saying it out there, by not telling us who it is, then what happens is that it can be pushed under the rug and nobody ever hears about it, and so therefore no laws then can prevent it from happening again, or no kind of rules or policies that come into place that, because that happens in politics all day long. And so that's why I understand what you're saying, and I kind of okay with it, but then there's that thing that for the general deterrence.
Let me say something and be clear, right?
Yeah.
If the Integrity Commission is doing its work, then they cannot escape. And I tell you why. If the investigations lead to prosecutions being brought, at the stage when the investigation is completed, the prosecutions are being brought, persons have been charged, then it can be made public then. Let me use an example to sharpen the point. In the Proceeds of Crime Act, POCA, there is a provision, I think it's section 92, I could be wrong in relation to section, but I think it's section 92, that talks about tipping off, right? If there is a suspicion that somebody is involved in criminal lifestyle, then if that person is under investigation, let's say they're running some money through the bank, right? A worker in the bank finds out that this is illicit, reports the matter to their nominated person. That nominated person can't tell the customer, the client, that they are being investigated. That is called tipping.
But that's a different situation.
No, it's the same thing.
No, man, because the Integrity Commission says that it has completed its investigation. Go ahead.
No, did they say that they did complete the investigation?
Yes.
But listen, Leo,
yeah, man, yeah.
If they completed their investigation and these persons are found to have done something wrong, why have they not been recommended to prosecution?
I thought that's what it says, that they are being referred. No,
they are being investigated. That's one. The other related point is this: in instances where persons are being investigated, they are contacted. So the issue of tipping off can't arise, because they have been contacted by the Integrity Commission to say, you, John Brown, you are being investigated. Answer me these various questions.
No, so and here's what I'm saying. It does arise. And here it does arise, right? Yes, they have contacted them. They are not tipped off. They are not tipped off from the fact that somebody inside there prips them and say, look here, we're investigating enough. Get your house in order, right? Not from that angle. Fine. But what is to prevent them when the Integrity Commission contacts them is doing the investigation for them to fill in the gaps? What is to prevent them from doing that?
I would argue that it would be difficult at that stage, because the Integrity Commission, from the fact that it has mounted an investigation, would have prima facie basis on which to be doing so. So when you start to cover your tracks now, it's digging a hole.
Yeah, I don't think that the Integrity Commission would have released that document to Parliament if they didn't feel that there's something here. If they didn't get to a point where, okay, it's done, why would they release it to Parliament? That don't make any sense.
This is the point. Hold on, and this is the point I'm making, right?
Yeah, that don't make any sense.
No, hold on a second. It is not sufficient, because if we take for instance, take the case of the former speaker, right?
Right. Good example.
Dr. Ivey can correct me if I'm wrong. The former speaker was referred for prosecution, isn't that so?
Yes.
Okay, so
right?
Got you.
The former speaker was, and this is the point I'm making. In the report in relation to these 6 people, all we have been advised is that they are under investigation.
Yes.
And that is why I come back to my point about, I believe this is a Bastille moment, where the Integrity Commission is trying to demonstrate that this gag order not supposed to be there.
Something is wrong with this then. Something is seriously wrong with this process. They should not have released that information then, Arnaldo. If it's not going for prosecution, it should not be released. I don't believe that.
Because here's the thing now. No, let me tell you something. I'm going to put on my defense attorney hat now.
I thought you had it on for quite some time.
just putting it on now.
It should not. It actually, you know, anybody who comes out of that.
Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
They forward now and charge these persons. Say them should be prosecuted and charge them. I'm going to say that they were prejudiced.
Prejudiced. Yeah, they were seriously prejudiced. And even and there can be a lawsuit if they are not legally charged. If there was no reason for them to
I think the Integrity Commission has immunity from
Oh, is that right? Oh God. No,
man. No.
Something is wrong with that, Bridget.
No.
They're not supposed to do that.
Yes, but you see, you guys have not addressed the point I made, you know.
Yeah, go ahead.
6 parliamentarians are being investigated. We don't know who they are. They may well be on the Integrity Oversight Committee of Parliament. Are we saying that we think it is okay for persons who are being investigated by the Integrity Commission to also be?
I don't know. No. I don't agree with that either.
But
they shouldn't be looking at their own report.
Conundrum. How do we treat with that situation? How do we treat with that reality?
Yeah, that should not be.
But can I say something to you?
Yeah.
And it's really a catch-22 situation, right?
Well, all right.
Because based on my understanding, if the Integrity Commission asks a member for certain information to validate their report and their wealth, and it is not forthcoming,
yes,
a letter is usually written to the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, the Prime Minister, and the Leader of the Opposition in respect to that member. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So there are at least 4 people in the nation that has
at least four would know. And if you throw the clerk of the house inside there, the clerk of the house
would have opened that, yes.
Yes, but this communication is to what end?
To get them to supply the information
That they need, yes.
The point I'm making to you is, and I'm answering your question directly. The question you ask about a conflict of interest. Somebody who is being investigated that is on the Integrity Oversight Committee.
They would have been kicked off.
That's the point.
Yeah, they have to be removed.
First of all, the Prime Minister.
Nobody has been removed now. When this.
But how do you know that they're on that oversight committee?
Well, no, I think you're missing my point, Dr. Ivey. Right? I think you're missing what I'm getting at. Because the point is that if the Prime Minister knows,
yes,
right, then he would need to act.
Yes, and yes, definitely.
If the opposition knows, he would need to act.
Yes.
So are you suggesting that none is on it?
If the person who
is on the opposition
investigation,
yes,
he would need to act.
Yes.
So are you saying that no action has occurred means that none of the 6 is?
No, he doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that. but I understand where he's going with.
That is an inference that we'll have to draw. That none of them is on oversight. because the point is, if they are on there and they remain on there, then those persons who have spoken about are implicated.
What if Primus inter pares? What if Primus inter pares is one of them?
Explain that for the public.
Well, listen. And it's an interesting question because it is who polices the police,
Right.
right? Who polices the police? And this is I suspect, and this is just a response. The Integrity Commission would then now have to escalate it. In my view, it would be to the head of state, right? And if not the head of state, then possibly the head of the judiciary.
All right.
You see, all right,
point.
the last point on this at this juncture, Leo,
Yeah,
is
we're
that
gonna close in a
the
minute.
gravity of the situation, though.
Yeah, we do.
What this is pointing us to is the gravity of the situation, that it
All
is
right.
not a trifling matter for 6 parliamentarians to be investigated on the investigation of this particular
question, Arnaldo. This is a big question. How long do the persons who are being investigated, and let's say the 6 persons right now, how long do they have to provide the Integrity Commission with the information or documentation that they require? And how long do they get to the, and what if it's not done in that timely manner? What happens? Or is this gonna go on forever?
It can't go on indefinitely, but again, an interesting question, right? But put it this way: if there's no, if after they have written to the Prime Minister, they have written to the and this is after they would have reached out to the members directly and asked them to provide the information, and it's not forthcoming. The right to the Prime Minister, the right to the leader of the opposition, nothing is forthcoming. Then in the old dispensation, they would refer the matter to the Director of Public Prosecution for them to be prosecuted, right? Now, in this dispensation, there is a prosecutor in the Integrity Commission. And that is why I'm saying I do not understand why the thing has not yet progressed to the point where there are prosecutions or there's referral for prosecution, because that's the next step.
Absolutely.
So if the investigations are completed and it is found that there is a case to go forward, that would be the next step. And at that stage now, that is where it had reached with the former speaker who resigned, right? Her matter was referred for prosecution.
So how come?
We don't know if it's in any of the hidden reports.
I don't understand that. I don't understand that. That means the speaker who resigned recently, that name would have been put forward as being an investigation in this person before. And we never hear that before. I never heard that before. It was only when
she would have been under investigation, and then the matter would have been referred to the prosecutor, internal to the Integrity Commission, who would determine that there's a prima facie case, and then refer that matter for prosecution. And this is why I'm saying that is a little bit untidy, if we're honest. It's a little bit untidy that the Integrity Commission only says to the public that there are 6.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And nothing
yes, but
more.
Remember now, that context is also important. It was in its annual report where it tabulates how many statutory declarations it received, how many were examined, and so on and so forth.
Well,
it was in that report.
That makes it even worse if you think about it.
It was in that annual report.
So why aren't these? Were these 6? Were these 6 on there? Because I saw that report.
It says that in one of the sections, and on the investigations, 6 parliamentarians and 28 public officials. It just made that line.
Okay,
and that is unfortunate, because the question is, have those persons, yes, they were under investigation, and here's how investigation work. You can find something to prosecute, as well as you can find nothing to prosecute.
Right.
Right? So the fact is that, did they find something to prosecute? Have these investigations moved from investigation to prosecution?
Right.
Where are they?
Yeah.
They need to come back and tell us.
I agree. And if they did not have anything to prosecute, they should not have
They
announced it.
should say that they have found nothing to prosecute.
Right,
Right?
right.
So, so in
Say,
other words, there need to be a follow up. There need to be a follow up report in relation to that. And here's the thing now, and I come back to my point that I believe that the Integrity Commission, well, and it may be inadvertent, who knows, but call it conspiracy theory. Why would you put in your report that 6 people are being investigated, and it may very well just be for noting, right? But there's nothing more beyond that. And we have this gag order now where you can't call
can't say
anybody
anything
name,
on him.
but at least you come back and say, well, so
Yes,
it got no
can't
referral
do
to
more. Yeah, can't do no more.
All right. Well, what do we make?
All right.
What do we make of the practice of the Integrity Commission? Each time it submits a report to the Parliament or the president, the Speaker, the President of the Senate, and the clerk, it puts out a press release to say we have this today, submitted a report to the Honorable Speaker, the Honorable Senate President, and so forth.
All right, that's as long as listen to me. As long as they have a reason to prosecute, they can make that public. But
I have no issue with them saying that they have
submitted a report. Exactly.
A report.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Because the fact is that we do need to put the public on notice
that things are going into Parliament.
These reports,
that's right,
be submitted because once it is tabled in Parliament, it should be accessible to the public or through access to information, right? What is tabled in the Parliament is not.
So we have come full circle. No. To the point where we started this conversation, this line of the reports in Parliament being hidden. We have come right back around to that point.
No, I am going to say this, that I am totally disagreeing with a position that the IC should say that they are under investigation. You should not say that, because the police should not say that anybody's under investigation. They should do their investigation without the public's knowledge, and once they have a reason for an arrest, a reason for prosecution, then they say. But a person who's under investigation there's no reason why I need to know about that.
I think we're conflating two things.
But you see, look at what happened again with the former speaker, right? The minute that it came out that there was a referral to prosecution, she resigned.
No. She tried to dig in her heels, but didn't get any political cover and resigned.
But she had to resign because there's
it was when a groundswell. She did not resign.
But the groundswell came because
that's what caused it.
The public.
Right. But the point I'm making is that I think we are conflating two things.
She was referred for prosecution.
Yeah,
right?
That's a big thing.
That is why the groundswell came.
Yes.
And the point I'm making further is that at the stage that she was referred for prosecution, that could be made public.
Yes, I agree.
Now when you say that investigation, there's no referral for prosecution. Right?
Yes.
People are there speculating. Now, let me ask a question here. I won't be the devil's advocate, right? But let me ask a question. Let us say that these persons who are being investigated somehow provide the Integrity Commission with information that satisfies them.
Yes.
And there's no referral to prosecution. What is going to happen then?
Right. If their name was already out there.
No, this is the point that I wanted to make. That we are conflating two things, which is one, for the IC to have said 6 parliamentarians and 28 public officials are under investigation. That's one. What has been happening is that there are some persons in some quarters and some organizations that are saying that the persons are to be named.
No.
So now you see there are two different things in terms of saying, one, that bit of information is mentioned in the report, A. B, others have gone on further to say that the person should be named. And
Yeah,
in the
but I don't
question
agree with
that
that.
Mr. Brown just put, what if the persons are exonerated as a result of the investigation?
Yes.
The fact of the mention of the 6 and the 28, that is the end of it. I think the problem may arise if, having named them, they are exonerated. That's it. But you could also say, but you are exonerated.
Yeah, but they
No,
should not. They
no,
should not.
no, no,
I don't agree. I don't agree with that, because once you are listen. The worst thing a person can do is tell a lie on you, and the worst to me on me.
uh,
Yeah,
listen,
and if there's a legal document out there that says that I am being investigated for something, I will have a problem with that. Anybody would have a problem with that. I know that.
but let me make this point, right? I don't think we're conflating two things, because here's the thing. So Marlene Malawu Fort, the Minister of Justice, not Justice, Legal and Constitutional Affairs, in the Parliament this afternoon, was asking why is the Integrity Commission focused on parliamentarians, right?
That's not true though.
And no, but I'm making the point. So
Okay.
nobody is asking for the 28 public
Right.
servants,
Right.
but I'm asking for the 6 parliamentarians to be named,
Right.
which is the
Right.
point she was making.
Right.
And
Okay.
I'm saying that this is the conundrum that the Integrity Commission gets itself in
Into, yes.
when it does this type of business,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't think it was prudent. I don't think it is prudent. I think what should have happened is that when the persons reach the stage where they are going to be referred for prosecution, have been referred for prosecution, or, as you have said, Leo, has been charges are laid against them, then you make that public.
That's right. I agree with
But
that.
interestingly enough, I've read Integrity Commission reports. I've looked at some recently. And the point is that the reports have included information on the number of persons who have been referred to prosecution for late submissions of their statutory declarations, non-submission of their statutory declarations. So the point I'm making is this: you can find those numbers in there: non-submission, late submission of statutory declarations, and so forth. Then you go on to say 6 are being investigated for illicit enrichment. How different is that information?
Yeah, because illicit enrichment is a
Have
totally
nothing to do
different
with
ball game,
documentation.
right?
Yeah,
That's a total different ball game.
But
yes,
when
And I,
you
yes.
and I,
don't submit your statutory declaration,
and again, I'm making the point. It's like a cliffhanger, right? Because investigation does not mean that these people are guilty.
Yes.
And I am making the point that if it turns out that the investigations turns up nothing, right? If you had named them, you would have damaged them,
Yes.
right? And that damage, no matter what we say, cannot be
It's in the
repaired,
news. Yeah, it's in the
because
news.
people are always going to have it in the back of their head. But this fella you never get investigated for
Yeah, yeah, and they're supposed to go to jail. Yeah,
right?
that kind of thing. Yeah, they are.
Yes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so the truth is that yes, we want integrity in public life. Yes, we want to hold politicians accountable. But at the same time, we have to ensure that justice is done.
Yes.
That is a critical thing.
Gentlemen, this has been a wonderful, a wonderful display of I think that we've thrashed this in all different aspects, and I think that whomever is listening will get a better understanding of what is going on when it comes to reform, that's constitutional reform, the throwing out of the Queen and bringing in our own, and also know the what is called the Integrity Commission report on the people who have been investigated. So we need to understand the difference between investigation and being charged or being referred to public prosecution. I let each of you spend a minute and wrap it up. Go ahead, Paul, and wrap up, and then I'll leave Arnaldo for next.
I will end where I started.
Yes.
In a democracy, citizens must play an active role in governance by demonstrating their interest in public affairs, matters of national importance. And I think a forum such as this affords us the opportunity to expound on matters of national interest and also to bring about an element of education to our fellow citizens of what are some of the key issues that are relevant to our country as we continue to grow our democracy and as we try to aspire for better governance, better accountability, so that what I call the promise of independence can be realized for us to have a safe and happy home for all Jamaicans, as Norman Manley said on the morning of August 7th, 1962.
Thank you so much for that. Sounds like you had that well written.
Actually, in my head,
good job. Thank you.
Good
job. Go ahead, Arnaldo.
On the question of constitutional reform, I believe that there needs to be a broadening, deepening of the engagement of the people. I think we need to look at the pros and cons of the various systems. But more importantly, I believe that we need to fashion a Jamaican system, not a US model, not a Westminster model, but a Jamaican model that is informed by the Jamaican citizens, that is informed by a political culture. And if we do that, I believe that we will have a democracy that is sustainable and stable.
Wow, thank you so much, guys. And you guys, I'm hoping for a prosperous 2024 for each of you. I'm hoping to make enough money this year. I mean, enough money, overflowing amount. All right.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The person should define wealth for themselves, and that can bring an element of contentment. That's what I've decided to do.
All right, great. Have a wonderful evening, guys.
Thanks for the opportunity and thanks for the engagement.